Well, well, well. The nail polish bandit in the flesh. This town ain't big enough for the two of us. I challenge you to a duel. Draw! Now that's right. Go on. Get.
Oh, Sheriff, you saved the day.
All in a day's work, partner. Yeah! Well, howdy, my children. Your father has rassled up a new swatching video. Holo Taco just launched their new Disco Cowboy collection, which is this year's Holo royalty release. There are 5 funky limited edition polishes, and the full set comes in this rootin' tootin' super carton.
Is the dishwasher gonna make noises in this?
I hope not. Today I'll be swatching the new collection, showing how they compare to things in my collection, swatching them over black, and sharing a dy-no-mite Disco Cowboy nail art. Which, speaking of, I actually worked with Holo Taco on this nail art, so I'm gonna share some behind the scenes as well. Hello, it's me, Nick again. After recording this, I realized I have a lot more to say about this collection, so ignore the continuity errors in this video. One thing that I wanted to mention is that I'm kind of conflicted about this collection. I got this a while ago and kind of went on a journey with this collection, starting from not really liking it to slowly starting to really like it to back around to not really loving it, with the exception of one polish. I'll get into more of this later, but this collection is another example of a criticism I have of Holo Taco of same color stories that I think you'll notice as we go through the collection. But enough yapping, let's giddy up into these swatches. Starting things off, we have Moonlit Rodeo. This is described as a purple jelly with a cyan micro shimmer and a scattered holographic glitter. And this is the kind of jelly that I personally like because it has the micro shimmer in it. However, it's still a jelly polish, and it took 3 coats to get to full opacity. Like, most of the nail looked good in 2 coats, but the tips of the nail were poking through a little bit, so I needed a 3rd coat to cover that up. But I also do want to warn y'all that this one causes a fair amount of staining, even with a base coat. Not that staining really bothers me that much, because I can't honestly think of the last time I've left the house with naked nails. That would be indecent. And before we start the comparisons, because a lot of these shades are things I wouldn't typically purchase for myself, I don't have as much brand diversity as I usually do. So apologies if these are a little Holo Taco heavy, but they are the largest brand represented in my collection since I've bought almost everything since the brand launched before I started receiving PR. Anyways, this polish was one of the more unique ones in my collection. Both A Most Destructive Melody by Mooncat and Holo Taco's Purple with Envy are too deep, but both have the blue multichrome aspect as opposed to the ghostly cyan that this polish has. I also put it next to Phantom Call by Holo Taco because even though the color is entirely different, I think they have a similar formula and have a very similar base color. Though while writing this script, I realized that the color shift in Moonlit Rodeo really reminded me of The Price is Alexandrite. However, the moment after I started swatching this, it was really clear that Moonlit Rodeo is a far more light purple. Like literally nothing alike. Wait a second. There we go. Bad lighting, it looks the same. Good lighting, totally different. Bad lighting, identical. Different, identical. Overall, I really liked this shade. I know for some the staining might be a point of consternation. Did I say it right?
Yes.
So you may want to double up on the base coat to try to prevent that. But also, as I said, just keep your nails painted and it's not a problem anymore.
Why was that bag of chips much better?
Much better!
As Christine Simply Nailogical. Why did you say it like a goblin?
Well, how does she say it?
It's not a problem anymore.
Moving on, we have my absolute favorite, Disco Inferno. This is a hot orange frosted metal with a gold hollow scattered glitter. And y'all, the frosted metals are my favorite thing that Holo Taco has ever made, so it's no surprise that this is my favorite from the collection. But if you weren't aware, the frosted metals are kinda known to not translate that well on camera and lose a little bit of their aggressive metallic tone. But I promise in real life, this looks like a somewhat textured metal traffic cone, and I'm just obsessed with it. Plus, the inclusion of the gold scattered hollow just makes this pop even more and just makes me love it even more. And this one was even better than some of its predecessors, as I found it reached full opacity in only 2 coats. As for comparisons, the only orange metal flake polish I have is Cheap Champagne from the first Frosted Metals launch. That collection was a winter palette, so the metals were light and more subdued, while Disco Inferno has this incredibly vibrant orange base color. I also grabbed Frozen Bananas, as that is a warmish metal. I know it's not alike at all, but it's probably my favorite polish by Holo Taco, so I took the chance to show it off, even if it doesn't make that much sense. But one thing that I did see while putting these together is that the metal flakes in Disco Inferno are more apparent. I'm not sure if that is because they're intentionally larger, or if it's because these are my OG bottles of Cheap Champagne and Frozen Bananas and the pigment degraded over time. But also, there could be something going on behind the scenes, because this has a similar texture to Birthday Brat, Holo Taco's previously most recent Frosted Metal. Yeah, it was previously their most recent Frosted Metal.
I don't think you need to say previously and most recent.
But it's not their most recent. This is the most recent because it came out today.
I came around to it.
Okay, yeah, I'm right. Because
it just sounds weird to say previously most recent.
Yeah, but I also say like yesterweek or like yestermorrow or something. I don't say yestermorrow.
Huh? Yestermorrow.
That's right now.
Yestermorrow? The current moment.
Yes.
Tomorrow. Are we 40 minutes in now?
28.
Honestly, I cannot form words to express how happy I am that this polish exists in my life.
Which is why you said it for me. Thank you. The Frosted Metals were one of the first times a nail polish formula really spoke to me, and I'm just happy to see more of it. I'll get into more of it later, but I've had a color palette criticism with Holo Taco in their recent releases, and this polish really gave me faith that they haven't forgotten about fans like me. But also the problem is now I just want more. Like, I dream of the day where I have an entire rainbow of Frosted Metals on my hand. But until that day, at least I have Disco Inferno. You're my favorite. Tell the others. Next up is Sparkling Spurs.
Sparkling Spurs.
Sparkling Spurs. Sparkling Spurs. Next up is Sparkling Spurs. This polish is described as a warm lilac purple.
Crushed hollow.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll be here all week.
And past that, I hope.
Nope.
Oh, crap.
Just a week.
Looking for a new husband, I guess. You have to be able to cook because I can't. This palette...
Do you want to say the line or should I?
No, go ahead.
This polish is described as a warm lilac purple crushed hollow.
Great work, 10 out of 10. And if you're not familiar, the crushed hollow formula is pretty unique to Holo Taco, as it's somewhere between a scattered holographic effect and a linear hollow. As for the color, it's a little too pink for my taste, but I do like how it is a little mauve or taupe leaning. However, I don't really see the lilac aspect of this because I always think of lilac as more of a purple. Looking back at this footage now, there is a little hint of a visible nail line, but nothing that I think a blurring base coat couldn't have fixed. Regardless, I built this to full opacity in 2 coats. Like I said, this polish is more pink leaning than lilac leaning to me, so I put it next to Pink Fizz and Pop Rocker. Arguably, Pink Fizz is really close in terms of color, except Sparkling Spurs is warm toned while Pink Fizz is a cool toned pink. Even though the color is nothing alike, I also grabbed Pop Rocker, which is Holo Taco's Pink Crushed Hollow, to show the formula's similarity. And once again, I'm adding more comparisons. I recorded all of the footage before the collection was even announced, and I saw some comments specifically mentioning Glamethyst and Royal Crush. Purple is really popular, so it's no surprise that it's represented here. However, Sparkling Spurs is way more pink leaning and is in the Crushed Hollow formula, as opposed to Royal Crush, which is a metal, and Glamethyst, which is a glitter and shimmer polish. So as I said, I worked with Holo Taco for some marketing material on this collection, so I've had it for quite a while now. And during that time, I went back and forth on my thoughts for this collection. Initially, I hated the color because it was pink, but weirdly, while swatching it, I started to like it. Like, let me read you my notes while doing the swatches. Why do I like this? It's pink, but it's like a muted yet saturated pink that is like fuchsia, but muted. Thank you. But now I'm back around to not being a big fan of it. It's not a bad shade, it's just not for me. Moving on, we have Cowboy Tears.
If a cowboy cries in the wild, wild west and no one's around to hear it.
He still has feelings.
Did he get hit by the tree that fell?
No, it's the Wild Wild West. What trees are there? Know your biomes, William.
If a bear shits in the woods, do you hear it?
Depends on what it ate.
Or if it's taking ampicillin.
I love having to take antibiotics because I had a surprise root canal this week. What if I showed them a picture of it?
No, you are not showing a picture of your mouth to the internet.
Moving on, we have Cowboy Tears.
Is that how you cry? It falls down your face and then dribbles through your beard?
Yeah, like I think I got all of it out.
Nail fam, comment below. Do you see tikka masala in the beard?
This is described as a turquoise crushed hollow with a pink to purple micro shimmer. Happy? The base color looks a little baby blue in this lighting, but in the comparisons, I think it looks a lot more turquoise or deep aqua. And even though it's pink, the micro shimmer actually adds a lot to this polish. And while I love Holo, adding the shimmer into this really gives this polish something when it's not in direct sunlight. And like the previous shade, I found it buildable in 2 coats, but once again, looking back at the lighting, it could have used a third or a blurring base. As for comparisons, I put it next to other holographic blues in my collection. The closest is Hydropower, which is an aqua linear holo. With Cowboy Tears next to Hydropower, I see more of its turquoise aspect as it looks a touch greener in comparison. The other polishes I grabbed are really not that similar, but are included to show how green leaning Cowboy Tears is. Regardless, I'm actually quite fond of this shade. I know, even with the pink shimmer. I think it's because the pink is really secondary to the blue base color, and I really appreciate the dance of the warm and cool tones on the nail. Is this where I can make a hoedown throwdown reference?
Tic tac, ride-a-do, do-do-do-do, diagonal.
None of those are the words.
I've never seen it. I've never watched the Hannah Montana movie.
I need you to know that the finale song of that, when I was a kid, I used to watch that movie and just sob.
Cowboy Tears?
Brought it back! And last up we have, aw, bless your heart, which is the cowboy equivalent of, I love that for you. This is described as a berry pink hollow glitter. Now I'm not generally a fan. Now I'm not.
What you think of chunky glitter?
Now I'm not generally a fan of chunky glitter polishes, and this one's no exception. Besides also not being a fan of the base color, I found that it took 3 coats to get to full opacity. On 2, the majority of the nail looked pretty decent, but there was a little bit of thinness on the tips of the nails, so I added a 3rd coat. But one of the main reasons why I'm really not a big fan of chunky glitter polish is because they are awful to remove without a peel-off base coat. Now this is a do as I say, not as I do moment, because I had to scrub these glitters off, which I would never recommend because that is not good for your nails' health. So if you do pick up this polish, I would recommend using a peel-off base coat or using a soaking method for removal. Oh, and one other thing that I also wanted to mention is the glitters were so chunky that I would also recommend 2 coats of glossy top coat to smooth everything over. As for comparisons, this one is probably the most guilty of Nick doesn't like this color, therefore the comparisons are a little booty. Birthday Brat has a similar base color, but is too hot pink and a metal, and Party Punch is too much of a saturated red. However, once again, while writing this, I thought of another thing to compare it to, that being Plum Luck from their Holiday Chunky Glitter collection, you know, the one with the gaudy box. While it's ultimately a darker polish, they are essentially the same formula and have the same color tone. Like, not the same at all, but they would definitely be in the same gradient manicure. So it should be no surprise that I don't love this shade. It kind of has everything working against it for me, both being a chunky glitter and a pink polish, but if you love that, bless your heart. As for the whole collection altogether, this is probably one of the least cohesive collections Holo Taco has made, likely because Holo Taco didn't really pick the colors. This is their Holo Royalty collection, which was voted for by Holo Taco fans, so it's really no surprise that the color palette is a little all over the place, because the nebulous The Fans represent a very diverse group of individuals. Individually, each color could be a standout in its own collection, but all together, it's kind of a gaudy Wild Wild West. That said, Christine really worked overtime to pull it all together because she managed to tie them together with a theme and made this cute super carton for the collection and the color palette. Personally, I'm starting to really like the super cartons more than the collection boxes because I don't really have room for more. Plus, it seems like Holo Taco has been releasing something each month this year, and I feel like the super cartons could be a good way to help minimize FOMO. However, at the current moment, they've only used super cartons for limited edition collections, so the jury is still out on that. One thing that I really appreciated about about this collection is, like Off the Deep End, we've gotten out of that soft and cozy territory that we've been in since the beginning of the year. However, it feels like even though the color palette in this one is pretty amped up, in most collections we still get a blue, a purple, and a pink. Now, I know Christine is a data girly and as such analyzes public opinion, which favors colors like this. But it's even more apparent here because the color palette was selected by the audience. I know my personal preferences are in no way the majority opinion because the color palettes that I voted for wasn't this one. For example, I remember this one color palette, which please fact check me if I'm wrong, was this like green blue direction that had this accent color that was like maybe a light or creamy yellow that I was really excited for. Hence why I was disappointed when the next round of voting didn't have that palette. My biggest problem, minus the best color, that being Disco Inferno, is this color palette is really similar to previous Holo royalty collections. 2 years ago were all pinks and purples. Last year, minus the addition of the teal, was a pink, purple, and a blue. And again, now we have 2 pinks, a blue, and a purple. But also the orange, who I will protect at all costs. Don't you dare discontinue her. Oh wait, it's limited edition.
She's already discontinued.
So I was happily surprised when the theme was heading into a cowboy direction because
You're not even a real cowboy.
I just play one on TV.
On the internet.
Hey, some people watch YouTube on their TV. Shout out to our friends who watch YouTube on the TV. I love you. And this is an example of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take because I floated the idea of potentially working together on content for this launch by Holo Taco, and they said yes. I was commissioned to make a manicure music video on Instagram using this collection. When I first got it, I wanted to do some tests to see how the polishes would interact because I wanted to use as many of them as I could. I found they all had a lot of texture, which made the lines between colors get a little muddled. So I pivoted to Nail Husband's idea of a disco cowprint manicure that was inspired by a friend on Instagram, the amazing publications and polish. To do this, I started with a couple of coats of Ivory Tower, the best off-white polish. Second only to glazed over. Glazed over is actually the best. I was so stressed while doing this because somehow a fuzz managed to get lodged in the first layer, and when I attempted to peel it off, it just made things worse. However, with enough coats of polish, you can hide any mistake. Then after, I went in with a tiny brush and each color to make irregular blob shapes on the nail, trying to put each color in a different location around the nail. All in all, this was actually a really easy nail art, as I think it probably took under 30 minutes in total to complete. I'm really proud of the overall look, and even a coworker who said that my winter nail art was the best one I've ever done said that this one was her new favorite. This was a really rewarding experience, and I'm incredibly grateful because the brand that got me into playing with nail polish paid me to play with nail polish when I used to pay them to play with nail polish. That said, I would love to see Holo Taco release more toppers because that's what got me into this in the first place. So one thing I try to do when I get new polishes is test their ability as toppers over black. So regardless of the fact that these aren't toppers, I painted thin coats of these polishes over black to see how they perform. Oh, wait a second. Oh, do I like this one now? I love testing this because one of the reasons why I love nail polish so much is that I just like to play with combinations and try things in a way outside of how they are intended. And for this collection, I'd say every shade could work as a topper. The only exception would be Cowboy Tears, as the blue pigment is very strong and leads to an uneven or patchy swatch. However, I still can't get over how cool sparkling Spurs looks over black, and this might be the way to get me to wear it again. And before we wrap things up, it's time for the WOMO. WOMO! What's on my other hand? Oh, I'm just Cher now. I'm wearing Bit of Bubble A by Cracked, topped with Golden Starlight by Starly. The gold reflective glitters really pop when the light source is directly behind the viewer. Using a phone flash, you get that real wow factor, but in regular lighting, such as getting milkshakes at 10 p.m. before we watch the Lady Gaga Coachella, such as getting milkshakes at 10 p.m. before we watch the Lady Gaga Coachella livestream, you can see a little bit of extra gold sparkle. And before you say anything, I know I'm technically wearing this on both hands, but WOMOH is a state of mind, because I was actually wearing a ton of different things in the process of making this video. So now that you've seen everything, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do these polishes make you wanna boogie, or are they just not your rodeo? Personally, I'm conflicted. The theme really speaks to me as a wannabe cowboy, but also as a disco music lover. Shout out to Kylie Minogue's disco album, that's my favorite thing that she's done. However, I would love to see more variety in the color palettes of future collections, but most importantly, more toppers, please. But also, I fully recognize the irony of being the nail polish cowboy who doesn't love the cowboy-themed nail polish collection. But not you, Disco Inferno. You can stay. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.
Okay. Good job. You're a perfect angel, baby boy.
Come here, hey. Hey. Hey.